Hello there, and welcome to the Ebon podcast. We are at the end of our proposed trilogy. How exciting is that?
We're at the beginning of the end of our proposed trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's true, yeah. We are at the beginning of the end. So if we want to get, kind of our Act 3 sorted, we're going to have to do a little bit of an overview for everyone, kind of lay this thing out, see what we want to see in the film, go through the locations, talk about the characters, go over inspirations. We did it for Act 1, we did it for Act 2, and now we're on to the grand finale. So, Cassia, we're getting ready to talk about Act 3. We're going in. We have to make pitches for this thing. So what do you say? Should we go over our elevator pitches? Let's get this thing started.
Yeah. So the first elevator pitch I wrote down, I crossed out, and I'm just going to say it in like the old kind of like movie announcement voice. It's like the elevator pitch was the epic conclusion and grand finale of the KOTOR Trilogy. And I'm like, no, that's too...
Oh.
It's too overdone,
No,
like
I like that.
It's not specific enough. So mine is... My second draft is the fates of Revan, Karth, Bastila, and the galaxy are revealed in the conclusion of the KOTOR Trilogy.
Okay, I like it. It lays out what we've got going on, very straight to the point. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it all up right there.
What is yours?
All right, so for mine, let's see, mine's a little bit more grandiose, but here we go. So we have the third and final installment of our KOTOR Trilogy, Act 3. The story picks up with our characters at their lowest point as the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance. We get to see our new planet, Korriban, the backbone of the Sith. We find an ancient civilization on an unknown world. We have a chance at redemption, a final confrontation, and, it's been chasing us from the beginning of Act 1. This is a box office smash, guaranteed. We're going to get spin-offs, books, games, everything coming off of the tail end of our third installment here. So let's wrap up the Knights of the Old Republic cinematic adaptation.
So I think yours was better than mine. So
I'm trying for a big as budget as possible.
Yeah, that's a good thing to keep in consideration. So for those keeping score at home, for elevator pitches, it's probably Brian 1, Cassia 0. So, yeah. But what did you title? What's the title of your Act 3?
Okay, so for my Act 3, I'm sticking with the theme of, a single word. Went for another R word, so I'm going to go with Knights of the Old Republic, Act 3, Redemption. So we did Recovery for Act 1, Revelation for my Act 2, and Redemption for Act 3. So they're all, kind of tied together, single word. They all start with R. Maybe you get a subliminal Revan in there. I don't know for sure, but Redemption, I think it paints a good story, a good picture of what's going on in this one. And I think it's nice and snappy. What do you think? What do you think about Redemption?
Huh. Yeah, it's poetic, and I don't know. I guess there has been Solo, but with even though it's not like episodes movies, because we're calling them acts,
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like this would be less of like a spin-off than like Solo and Rogue One. So I don't think there's been like single word titles, but maybe that's something they could do to switch things up in the future. But
yeah,
my title is The Star Forge.
Okay.
And the title of my Act 2 was Across the Stars. I feel like that title would be ripped from my hands, like probably by some studio executive, but I'm like, let me have this, And I think like my original title for Act 1 was The Mysterious Stranger, but I was like, maybe to keep with my star theme, Act 1 would be the star map, so it's like the star map across the stars and the Star Forge to kind of keep it focused in on the goal of the quest,
mm-hmm.
and then kind of like the Force dyad, the Force bond kind of connection that gets kind of entailed in the story, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that, giving it, a real note of like a specific place or a specific thing from, the episode or the act. I think is a pretty good nod, and that would, spawn some good movie poster art, I think. And,
Yeah.
That's always good for sure. So,
Yeah.
what do you say? Let's get into this thing. So we finished our Act 2. So we had just gotten off of the Leviathan. Bastila has, taken a turn to the dark side. She's with Malik. Everyone else is, kind of aboard the Ebon Hawk, going, trying to figure out where we are. And that's where Act 3 kind of picks up. So Cassia, from, kind of the opening credits, and we've talked about how, we would handle a crawl, doing some different artwork or different glyphs, things like that. But how do you think that this film opens, right? From where we were at the, the end of the last film, how does this one open up?
I almost wonder if it would need to be a cold open without opening credits, and like maybe that's like Star Wars blasphemy. But how I imagine in the opening of the third film is it's in space. You see Revan's flagship, and like it's kind of like a shuttle. Maybe it's evocative of the opening of I guess The Force Awakens kind of slightly, and kind of combined with episode 3, it's like kind of like a shuttle just weaving through a big battle. Maybe not as big as the Battle of Coruscant, but just like it's a Jedi strike team like getting into Revan's flagship. It's Bastila and the Jedi strike team, and they get onto the ship kind of just barely. They kind of have to the Jedi with Bastila fight the Sith on board, and eventually Bastila and the team make it to the bridge, but eventually it's kind of just down to like one-on-one Bastila and Revan, and you think like it's like, oh, we're in for like a grand, lightsaber fight. Let's see what's going to happen. Like a neophyte. Well, not a neophyte Padawan, but a Padawan still the same, but gifted with battle meditation and then a Dark Lord of the Sith. It's kind of like things are about to begin, but then Malik's betrayal happens, and then you kind of see Bastila gets flung over, but then she's like, is this person alive? Is this a person? Like, who is Revan, And then you kind of just see, like, Revan's alive, but barely, and, like, she decides to spare him. It's kind of, like, an interesting moment, because I really don't want Bastila to be like, oh, this guy's too hot to die, Like, even though, like, a romance does, like, happen down the line, I don't want any hints of that. It's just, like, it's just an act of mercy here,
Right.
So then you see, like, her use the Force to heal him, and then the bond forms. And then you see Bastila Solo kind of carrying Revan away. And then it gets a little bit more impressionistic from there. Like, you see the Jedi Council creating a new identity for Revan, and then Revan is a soldier on the Endar Spire, and then maybe you could kind of show, like, Bastila is keeping an eye on him, like, from afar. Like, Revan doesn't really know that she's there, like, not like she's, like, following him around, but, like, maybe, like, she sees him, like, enter the ship for the first time, like, kind of around some from a distance, and kind of knows what's happening, and, like, he has no clue what's happening, and then maybe she could have Trask Ulgo appear, and she could kind of give Trask maybe not the full rundown, but, like, she kind of tells him, like, this guy is very important, you need to keep him alive no matter what. And then it kind of leads into, like, the Endar Spire under attack, and then flashbacks kind of throughout Act 1 and 2, kind of like the story up to that point, like the bond, like, and the star map, and then it kind of shows, like, Bastila and Malik's ship, and then it would go to Korriban. Like, in my mind, like, the bond doesn't exist right then, but why I would open it that way is you kind of, like, get the whole rundown, and you get to visually see the bond be formed, and like what it means to the characters even when things are kind of broken between them, and the bond and their relationship is kind of in tatters, and like you just see one person like on the dark, and then one is kind of like in between light and dark.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of having kind of a cold open a lot in films that they're done well, and it kind of, brings you up to speed really quick. But I like kind of having this, it's kind of like a flashback, but it's more of just like a mental flashback, right? Because, Revan has just found out that he's Revan at the very end of our last film. So he's kind of, going through these memories and starting to piece together this stuff in his head. So I see it, kind of the same way where it's going, kind of from the strike team, but, maybe a little bit quicker. And then it, kind of eventually ends up with, Revan laying in his bunk aboard the Ebon Hawk or something like that. Or, he's sitting at the Jajaric table, just kind of daydreaming, thinking about all of this stuff. And then, maybe Kara says we're coming into Korriban, and that's where you get like the, Act 3 kind of title card kind of thing. But yeah, for me, I like the idea of opening it on kind of this, memory to do a little bit of a recap of what's happened, but also to give you some backstory, because as the audience, we just got this, bombshell news that Revan was Revan too. So to give it a little bit of context, I think would be really good.
Yeah. I mean, part of me, like, maybe this is obvious, but like all Star Wars films begin in space.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's why I was like, you can begin with like the characters, the Jedi Strike Team trying to get onto Revan's flagship, and then maybe it could end with like Bastila from the past with blue eyes, and then like she opens her eyes and they're yellow, maybe that could be the space part, and then I would actually open like with Revan like actually on Korriban already.
Okay.
And Korriban, like in my mind, is very evocative of Egypt. The is it the Valley of the Kings? Yeah, I think it's the Valley of the Kings.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It definitely has those vibes for me as well. So let's get on to Korriban here. So kind of just what we have going on Korriban, kind of in the game, and, some things we're going to have to address here in the film. Kind of the key plot point is we need to get into the Sith Academy and gain access to the Valley of the Dark Lords. And that's where we're going to find, this, next piece of the star map to figure out how to get to the Star Forge. So that's kind of the, the bulk of what we're going to Korriban to do. But Cassie, do you think there's anything else that's important that we need to cover there in terms of, plot points or things that you really want to see, or, things that stick out from the game that you're excited to see visually? What do you think about Korriban, kind of what it looks like and what we're going to do there?
For me, it's kind of like Egypt with a red sun, kind of like if I had to imagine a lens filter, kind of like an orangey red filter. And that's what it kind of looks like, and it evokes, like, the Valley of the Kings with, like, all the massive, like, is it megaliths? Though I think that's massive things of stone, but, like, I'm thinking, like, massive statues, and, like, pyramids, but that's how I imagine it looking like. Like, people could have a lot of fun with it. I mean, Unreal Cinema, like, I think they've realized, like, a really cool Korriban in the Unreal Engine, but... What I think the plot is, Revan has to dig deep to figure out who he used to be while infiltrating the Sith Academy on the dark side's homeworld. And I think he would have a vision of who he used to be, who he is, and who he will be. And, like, he kind of has to make the synthesis, And you kind of just have to keep it, like... They're there to find the star map. It's the final star map. It's the last piece of the puzzle. And then, like, that's how they get to the Star Forge. And I think everyone knows it's going to come to a head. And even though I don't think the party knows that Basilisk joined the dark side, but I think they just know it's going to come to a head and, like, things are going to go down,
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so the Valley of the Kings is a really good way to do it, and this section of the game from all the way back, is really interesting looking. You have these big, huge, statues, these big giant tombs of these ancient Sith lords. So yeah, it's going to look really neat, and I think it's going to be neat to get into the kind of Sith Academy. I don't know that we see any direct reference to Revan like inside of the Sith Academy, but I think that you could play with some lighting and maybe have everything kind of overcast in like purple and red, color schemes and tapestries and, inlays like inside of, the academy and inside of the temples to, kind of play off of, Darth Revan's color scheme. And maybe this is a place where he's kind of started to put the pieces together a little bit, but maybe, it's going to kind of come flooding back to him, just how powerful he was and how he basically, at one point was kind of the top leader of this place.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like he's going to have to kind of come to terms with who he is,
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could, like, become the leader of the Sith, or he could be the perfect Jedi, or he can be what I imagine, like, is the correct answer. And, like, in my story, like, what the movie is, like, he becomes the best version of himself, but, I mean, he's still Revan, so it's a synthesis.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be interesting to keep the film sort of cryptic on how he's feeling. I think you and I both kind of envision him getting to the same place ultimately, but I think just kind of this, he had just had this realization of who he really was, and then immediately being flung into, like I said, kind of the backbone of the Sith. That's really going to kind of play on his psyche, and you're just left kind of questioning where his head is at right now. Especially having just lost Bastila, kind of his, the other half of himself, just having lost her. Is that going to, kind of veer him in a direction that's going to frighten the rest of the team? I don't know, but I think that could be, kind of an interesting way to play it and kind of amp up some extra tension here that we're going to have on Korriban.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch Return of the Jedi, you see Luke's costume. It's kind of like a mix of, like, Obi-Wan's costume and Darth Vader, and it's all black, which is to kind of, like, subliminally have the viewers, like, questioning, like, what's happening? Like, is Luke going to go bad? Is he going to go good? And then, like, at the very end, like, you see, like, Luke's costume, a little bit of it falls away, and it shows it was white underneath, so it shows like he was like good all along, So I kind of see it like maybe like people on the team, like maybe he's not exactly dark sidey, but he's just kind of remembering and kind of maybe flirting with the dark side, or just kind of remembering like the old boundaries, and just kind of exploring who he is.
Yeah, I think all this stuff's just going to kind of come, rushing back to him for sure, and that'll be interesting. And we do have one other kind of storyline going on Korriban for one of our main trio here. So we have Karth, and he is going to be, reunited with his son in some capacity or another. Karth had always thought, that he, perished on planet along with his wife, but as it turns out, he was recruited to join up with the Sith, and he is here on Korriban at the the Sith Academy. So, do you have any good ideas for how you think that's going to play out, or what does that confrontation look like, and how do you think it goes?
My fan cast for Dustilo Nassi is Kit Young.
Okay,
he played Jesper in Shadow and Bone.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my fan cast for Dustilo Nassi. And
okay.
For Karth, I kind of think like when Karth runs into Dustil will help soften Karth to Revan, and without really knowing it, like Bastila, like he's gonna start to believe in second chances, like maybe not all is lost.
Sure.
And I think it'll be cathartic for Karth because he thought everything was lost, but it wasn't. Like, he didn't lose his wife and son. He's able to reunite with his son, and like he's kind of able to correct the situation. And I don't know if that would mean like Dustil would join the crew, but maybe Dustel's going to be like, I need to think things through, or maybe he comes back to help his dad, fight in the Battle of the Starforge, like with him and the Hawk, and they can bond and like be in the Ebon Hawk together, kind of fighting from the outside. I don't know, maybe that could happen, but and then maybe Juhani, like maybe Balea could have fallen to the dark side or something, or maybe she has to deal with the dark side once again on Korriban. But coming out of Korriban, I think it's like people are going to have to deal with like visions of the past, present, and future, and maybe quite literally with Revan, but like I think they're going to come out of Korriban, and it's almost like maybe like they're all reborn there, it's like a valley like where there's just tombs of the Dark Lords, but like in a way it's like the old self is dying and then they're being reborn. So like my film inspiration was kind of like the end of Inception, where you kind of just like everything is like clear and like kind of clarified for the audience. Like when you see Cillian Murphy's character kind of like get the idea to sell his company, I guess, even though it wasn't like his idea, but he just like kind of looks calm on the plane. I was like, oh, if we can capture that would be good, but yeah, that's what I would say. And a visual metaphor I think I could think of is like the Ebon Hawk kind of has like in Act 1, it's like a white and orange kind of paint job. And then when they have to escape the Leviathan, like in my mind, it's like they either have to go through the engine, so they kind of have to go through like the crucible of the Leviathan. So it's almost like the ship kind of gets burnt. So like the layer of like white and orange kind of peels away, and it kind of reveals like a black ship underneath, where it's like a black paint job. But I was like, maybe in the third one they can like kind of paint it like white, orange, and black, and it's kind of like the black kind of represents Revan's time as like Dark Lord of the Sith, and then like the white and orange represents like the new identity that Revan was given, and then like they could do a new paint job to like make their ship not stick out as much, but then like kind of not quite hiding it, but it's just kind of like they're restating the identity, so it's kind of like a synthesis of the identity. But maybe I'm just thinking of how do I get as many like Lego,
Yeah, there
merchandise opportunities out of this, because I'm like, there's just so many like gray starships.
Yeah.
Let's have some color, or maybe just pure black. And spoiler alert for the Starforge, like I'm like, we're gonna make that bronze, so it's not just a hulking gray statue. So
yeah, that would be lovely. Yeah, I like kind of those visual metaphors. Those are always fun to play with and kind of pick apart as you watch films. So I'm definitely in for that. So, Karth meets his son there. I think ultimately he's going to, get him to abandon the Sith and get out of there, rescue him. And I think that kind of fulfills, Karth's kind of journey that we started to see him, kind of going down, this path of darkness kind of in our second film adaptation. So this is kind of Karth's opportunity for redemption to, save his son and, save what's left of, his actual, family. And I think that that's going to be really good to see. Now, as far as my film inspirations for this section goes, I was going for more of like a visual type of feel. And I know that we've referenced the Indiana Jones films like hundreds of times now, but my inspiration is just the Temple of Doom, just kind of for the way that it feels. It's kind of, cryptic, a little bit darker as we're going through these tombs, lots of, flames and, kind of ambient lighting and things as we're making our way through the Sith enclave and into the Valley of the Dark Lords and going through these tombs. And I think that there's going to be kind of a narrative adventure because as you go through these tombs, there are different booby traps and droids, patrol droids, and that kind of stuff we're working to figure out. And there are a lot of artifacts that we could stumble across, which I think would be really interesting and kind of lean into that Indiana Jones kind of mentality there. But yeah, the big takeaway for Korban for me is just, Revan spending time there and, getting thrust back into this, new identity that he's just remembered that he had.
Yeah, that's why I would just think I would start with Revan, maybe with Juhani and Canderous in the Valley of the... Is it the Valley of the Dark Lords?
Yeah, I believe it's the Valley of the Dark Lords, I think is.
Yeah. And just going into a tomb and maybe some of the characters are like, is this a good idea? And then they end up kind of like finding some old staff or something, and then they turn it in, and then that's how you meet like Euthura and get the sense that this is an evil Hogwarts. And then eventually, like, they would, when they find the star map, it's kind of like they found the map to themselves, I guess. And like Revan is kind of more sure of who he is, and then they kind of know where to go from there, like the final location. So yeah,
but I'm really excited for Korban just to see it on film, because I think it's an interesting location, and there's a lot of different avenues to kind of explore there. I think Revan's going to kind of go around like you'd said with Juhani, maybe Canderous, kind of there through the Valley of the Kings, and everyone else is kind of left back to help, Karth kind of deal with the situation of, getting his son out of there as sort of a mini kind of, rescue mission, conversion mission kind of a thing. But Korban will be fun. It'll be good to see, somewhere that, shrouded in, dark energy, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we found our last piece of the star map. We are on our way now. Before we, carry on with the mission, we might need to stop, resupply, check on the health of the party, give the Ebon Hawk its new paint job. It's hard to say. Now, in the Act 2 overview, you brought up the really good idea of, are there maybe like other planets or locations we need to stop at on our way? Does that have something to do with the way, hyperspace travel is going at that time, or, just a way to introduce some new dangers and give the story a little bit of pacing? But the question I have here, we haven't been there yet. You have the option to go there in the game if you want. It's a place we've been to before, but we've never really had the chance to explore and film too much. But Yavin 4 is a place you can stop and do all of those things. So, Cassia, what do you think? Do we need to swing by Yavin 4 in the film, or mention it, or what do you think about that?
In Act 3, no. Like Yavin, I would say no to Yavin in Act 3. Like, I feel like it would be like in Revenge of the Sith, like if Obi-Wan learned that Anakin was Darth Vader, and then he's like, I know he's on Mustafar, but before we go there, I'm going to go to Cloud City and handle some things, So I would just see it like in Act 3. I think it would be a distraction. Too much to cover. There's too much to cover in Act 3. I think like the minute they have the final part of the star map puzzle, they know exactly where they need to go. It's urgent, Lihan. But I would say like if you want Yavin to appear, I'd put it in the like go Tatooine, and then while they're getting to Manon, maybe you could have Yavin in the middle, just so it's broken up a bit, and just so it's not just like. So there's a few more locations, I think, in Act 2.
Okay. Now, I actually think that it would be a good place to stop. I think if you lean into you have to like make a break to turn to get to the Star Forge. Like you need a place to stop and refuel or whatever the case is. But I think it's a good way to kind of split up the party a little bit before we get to Lihan, right, to the unknown world. Because I think when we get there, I want to have a little bit of a smaller party. So I think maybe we stop briefly at Yavin 4 to basically, like I said, just kind of break up the party. Maybe a Canderous mission. Zalbar be like, all right, we're gonna go onto the Starforge. We'll give you the signal when we get there. You guys can follow us in, and then we'll be ready because all of the Sith fleet is going to be there. So we're going to need a little bit more firepower maybe than just the Ebon Hawk. So I think it would be okay to make a quick stop if you play into it. Not that they're stopping to have an overnight stay at Yavin because it's beautiful, but it's a place that they have to stop in order to make it the rest of the way to the Starforge. Like I said, and I think that gives you an opportunity to maybe split the party up a little bit.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but for me, it's like it's a no.
It's a no. Okay. Well, that's fair. So I'm swinging by Yavin 4. I'm going to be late to the Starforge party, but as it turns out, we're going to run into each other anyway because Starforge has a big kind of force field around it, and we're going to crash, and it's not going to be good. And we crash on a place called the Unknown World slash Lehan slash Rakata Prime. It's known by a whole lot of names, but it's a pretty mysterious place. So we crash land on this place, and we need to get this shield that's protecting the Starforge. We need to get that turned off, and we're going to encounter an old friend there. So what do you think about Lehan in this? What's kind of your vision for getting there and what it looks like when we get there?
So I think it just needs one or two names, or else people are just going to get confused. So
yeah, fair.
Maybe it could just be called the Old Rakatan homeworld, called Lehan, and then that's it. Because if you have more than like more than like 2 or 3 names, it just confuses everyone, you know. But I kind of see like Lehan. When you first get there, maybe it could be stormy.
Okay.
And then, like, when the choice is presented, it's kind of cloudy. And Astronautica Art just released, like, an excellent postcard, just in time for the 18th anniversary of Knights of the Old Republic. And when we were collaborating on that postcard, I was kind of like, what if you kind of make it so, like, to represent the moment where, like, Revan has to make the choice, there's a yin-yang cloud formation in Attack of the Clones, when Anakin is right before, like, Anakin decides to leave Naboo to save his mom. And I was like, if we can represent, like, the choice, like, in the sky, I would like that, So it's like, when you first land on Lehan, it's stormy, and then it's kind of cloudy. And then after the Starforge is destroyed, it's kind of more of a paradise. So you kind of see all the different feelings an island or paradise can evoke. So I kind of see it like an island that has all the different phases. But for the plot, I kind of have like the characters examining a ruined and fallen empire. There's no threat there so much anymore. But it's like you can kind of examine the consequences of the dark side and empires there. And then the Revan and probably Jolie and Juhani are going to reunite with Bastila at the top of the temple. Mm-hmm. And for that scene, I kind of see it like Anakin and Padme on Mustafar, and Kylo and Rey on Snoke's supremacy. Like, one's on the light, one's on the dark. It's just not gonna work out. Like, and it's just like Basila's trying to rationalize to herself and Revan, like, the Jedi Council used us, and who cares about Darth Malak? We can off him and rule the galaxy together. Like, that's what you did. Like, I'm on this side now. And I think Revan would be tempted. Like, he has a new identity, and he's sure of himself, but he's tempted. He could just go back into his old role. It's like wearing old clothes that you did give away, or something. And it's like, I could just, like, slip these back on, Mm-hmm. But I think he wants to help Bastila, but perhaps going off with her is easier. But he sees that if they were to rule the Sith Empire together, it would end in death for one of them, probably, or like
Yeah.
both of them. Like, I think that's something that people don't realize about the dark side is like the dark side like ruins you. And that's why there's no happy relationships on that, like where both people are on the dark side or one of them's on the dark side. Like, it's not gonna work out, guys.
Yeah.
But what do you see, like, the plot kind of being?
Yeah, so we crash land in this place, and like you said, it's kind of a varied environment, right? So we crash. It's kind of on a beach, but then there are some kind of like lush, like jungle area kinds of things. And in the game, you actually have to kind of go back and forth between the Rakatans, right? The like this ancient civilization to get entry into this temple to go in and take care of this shield generator or whatever it was. I don't know that I see that, but I do think maybe you have an encounter with the Rakatans at some point, kind of going through, and they recognize you. They're kind of realize that you were very much trouble the last time you were through. So it takes a little bit of convincing to get you through, but I think that they're going to trust you. Like I said, they're kind of ancient. They know what's going on. You have Jolie and Juhani with you, kind of going on this mission, while whoever's else is kind of back at the Ebon Hawk, right? It's crash landed. It needs some repairs, so it's a good way to be split up a little bit. But I think once we get to into the temple and we're going through, we're learning kind of some history as we're making our way through this thing about what the Starforge is and how it came to be and how it originally was activated by Revan and Malik, and now the Sith have kind of taken over this thing. So I think that's going to be really cool to see, kind of get like a little, like a couple of little history lessons, right? So on Korriban first, and then now here to learn kind of about the birth of this galaxy far, far away. So I think that's going to be really cool. But I think that there's definitely some good opportunities to focus on a couple of characters. Now, my film inspiration for this one, I was trying to think of it. I couldn't think of a really good movie, but when I sat and thought about how Lihan feels when you're on the game, it reminds me a lot of the TV show Lost. Like, it's kind of like this tropical paradise thing, but there's something like some like undercurrent of not knowing what's going on there. And that's kind of the vibe I got. So for my film inspiration, I guess, is a TV inspiration, and it's Lost. What about you? Do you have any kind of film inspirations or things that you lean on for this one?
I guess for me, like the one film inspiration I had is the moment from Attack of the Clones that I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
I do have an inspiration. It's not really film, though. I don't know if you've ever seen the paintings by Thomas Cole. He did a series of paintings called The Course of Empire.
Okay.
So it goes from the savage state. It's kind of like just nature, and then the Arcadian or pastoral state. It's like you have some settlements, but it's mostly nature. But then it moves to the consummation, which is kind of just extravagant, like huge city, like kind of no nature. It's just extravagance, And then there is the destruction. And then that's when you kind of see like all these massive like statues, like kind of falling. There's just battles in the background. It's just the fall of everything that was once like great, And then after that, it's just like the ruins in the desolation. And for me, like I kind of see like maybe the history of the Rakatan Empire. It's kind of an allegory, I think, for like becoming powerful in the Force and then like turning to the dark side and like what it brings to the galaxy and like the Force user. So I think it's kind of like a warning about the dark side. So if you can kind of like have the art, the Rakatan art, and like kind of maybe like show like what happened to them, it doesn't mean it has to be like a PowerPoint and we have to get like
right
everything. But if you can kind of just get some visuals and kind of like show it visually, that would be cool. And I think like the feeling you get on Lihan is just kind of like it was a great empire, but now it's gone. And I also like the Pompeii song by Bastille. So
yeah, that's
those
a
are
good
my
one.
inspirations.
Yeah, those are good inspirations. I just pulled up that artwork, and yeah, that's a really cool kind of series of things, and I could see where you'd uh, get some inspiration for that for this section
Hmm.
definitely. So you'd mentioned kind of the confrontation with Bastila, at this temple, and I had kind of some thoughts like that. So I'd mentioned, that Juhani and Jolie, at least for me, I think those are kind of going to be the ones that go in there with you. That's who most people will probably take in the game because you have to, take the Jedi with you. But I think that it's going to give us a good opportunity for uh, Juhani and Jolie's kind of relationship and friendship and mentorship to kind of blossom through this, kind of each going back and forth talking about the failures and the mistakes that they've made, and Jolie really sort of relishing in this role as being a mentor, and kind of in the background of those two talking, it's also serving as kind of a good lesson for Revan, right? I'd mentioned it on Korban. He's still kind of reeling about his own journey, and we're building up to this kind of confrontation with Bastila and Malik and all that stuff. So I think he's kind of taking lessons from it too, although they're not being given directly to him. I think that that's kind of an interesting way for him to learn a little bit more about himself, and kind of getting over and forgiving himself and that. And then obviously the other one here is we get to see Darkside Bastila in all of her glory. So I think in the temple, in the game, you kind of meet on the roof. Maybe that still happens, or maybe you meet kind of down inside somewhere in a room. But I think that we're going
Oh,
to
no,
see.
no, no, no. I think like you need to like have like the whole be able to see like the lighting and the world around it, and like just kind of get the whole visuals rather than like a dank like random room. But maybe that's just me like being
Okay.
like, nope, visuals.
Well, so I agree. It probably should happen on the roof for sure. But I think that her and Revan are going to be kind of isolated up there. It's just going to be
Yeah.
kind of the two of them. They're having kind of a conversation, and she's basically trying to seduce Revan to come join her on the dark side, and she's making some pretty compelling arguments, especially to Revan. He's been down that path before, and you're kind of left unknowing. Where he's kind of leaning on this thing. And then maybe, after, some back and forth on this, a little bit of, questioning what's going to happen, maybe about that time, that's when, Jolie and Juhani kind of come in. Maybe they have sort of a little bit of a quick fight with Juhani, meaning that Bastila just uses the Force to like throw her up against a wall, and that's not really much of a fight. But maybe there's a little bit of a confrontation there. But yeah, like you said, kind of the ultimate thing that we want to see here is we want to see Revan and Darkside Bastila, with all of Lihan in the distance behind them on top of this roof.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see Revan being isolated at first, and then him running into Bastila, kind of like not believing it. Like, I definitely think like Basila's going to try to get Revan on her side. Like the game kind of makes it so she's really just angry and kind of seductive. I kind of see maybe that's just a little bit of like the writers being like, how would this character who is a female, like
Right.
act in this thing, and what is our fantasy, and it's like, maybe let's make this a little bit more realistic, kind of like more true to the character, even though she's on the dark side. But I think like it's gonna be like it's gonna come clear to Revan like Bastila's on the dark side, and it's like it doesn't have to be like this. And then like Jolie and Juhani are gonna be there, and then like in my mind, Juhani and Bastila are more like friends because they're contemporaries who were trained on Dantooine, and then like they're gonna try to help Bastila. But like maybe like the help she needs right then, she's just kind of annoyed with like, ugh, is this an intervention? Like, and like,
Right.
I think Bastila kind of has the element of surprise, and like, she's kind of just discovered the dark side, and she is pretty powerful, so like, she's going to be fighting against three people who don't really want to harm her. So she has the element of surprise on her side, and like, she's going to like wipe the floor with them. And then, yeah, so they're going to be like, well, that happened,
Right.
She's on the dark side. That's great. I mean, I think like Jolie is kind of wise enough to kind of be like, this is gonna happen, and then like I think like just Juhani and Revan would be expecting the best of their friend. It's kind of like maybe like the person in your friend group who like isn't as emotionally invested in like a certain outcome and can kind of just see the whole picture. And then some friends are like, no, like even though this friend always bails, you know, like they're gonna come through and like they said and come with us to the concert, you know. And like
Right.
this one friend is like, well, actually, hate to break it to you, but they're gonna bail on you and not come to the concert. And then it happens, and they're like, what, you know?
What?
So
What happened? But yeah, I think that's for me. You'd mentioned it there that Basil and Juhani, probably were friends, trained together and stuff, and I think that's why it's impactful to see her, kind of just dispatch of Juhani without much effort, right? And that's kind of emotionally devastating to Juhani, and Juhani's kind of seeing what her path would have been had she continued down the dark side. But I actually, in my head, I don't see Revan and Bastila like clashing lightsabers now. I don't know. I've been trying to figure out how like they get interrupted to where that doesn't happen, but I don't think that we actually have a fight with them right now. Do you see them fighting? And I guess how do you see kind of this section ending, right? So in the game, I think Bastila basically flees right after you have kind of a little bit of a fight with her there. But how do you think in a film it makes the most sense to kind of get out of this situation for Bastila and Revan and crew?
I mean, I kind of see them fighting, but Revan would kind of just be, I think like the team light side would just be kind of like fighting in defense and trying to get back, like trying to make headway like with Bastila, but Bastila's just not listening. And I don't think Bastila intended to kill them or anything, but like I kind of think like she could just kind of like force push them into the wall or something and just kind of make a getaway. Like she's not gonna kill them because I think they just mean too much to her, but like she's just gonna get away. So I think like maybe like they're kind of shaken, but Bastila got away. I think like you can't be like, oh, Revan and Bastila can't fight at all, because I mean like Kylo and Rey they fight, in the sequel trilogy. Some people had problems with that, but I'm like, it's a galaxy far, far away, and they're both at war. They're on different sides. Like, not everything in a Star Wars film is literally one for one in the real world with like real world like consequences. It's more of a symbolic story, and I think like we kind of are in a very literal generation. But I'm like, it's a symbolic story. The Force doesn't exist. I hate to break it to you. Like, so like, I just kind of see it as like a symbolic story, like a fairy tale.
Sure.
You just interpret it as poetry and not prose. So.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I think that they do need to fight. And for me, that's coming here shortly. But I think right now, I think that they get interrupted before they actually start like an actual physical battle. So maybe they both kind of ignite their lightsabers and make a move at one another. But something happens. I don't know if maybe they get the Ebon Hawk up and running and are flying overhead, and that kind of forces Bastila to kind of hightail it out of there so she can beat everyone back to the Starforge, or something happens that's going to stop them from actually fighting, I think, right here. And I think we're just going to have to kind of wait for that, for me at least, until we get onto the Starforge, which is where we're headed next.
Yeah. And for me, I think I already mentioned that the Starforge should be bronze, because it could just be a detail that like 5 people would get, but it's like with Greek mythology, they have Bronze Age, Silver Age, Gold Age, Stone Age. Actually, the Stone Age might just be me talking about history, but like they just kind of have different ages represented by different metals. And I'm like, rather than just like gray, metal that we see the Death Star created in, visually, why don't you make it a different color, at least so it's a different color of Lego set, And it could be bronze, and it could look cool with the sun, shining on bronze.
I think that would be awesome to do like a bronze, or to have it be like copper finished.
Gold.
And I don't, or gold. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I see kind of like that patina that like copper gets where it turns green. I don't know how that would work in space. It probably wouldn't, but yeah, some sort of like,
Maybe when it gets destroyed, it could turn green.
Oh yeah, there you go. But yeah, I like having it gilded, kind of in some sort of, not necessarily a precious metal, but having that appearance, I think would be really cool.
Yeah. And like for me, the plot of the Starforge, it's like the fate of Revan, Bastila, Karth, Darth Malak, and the galaxy are revealed. And one thing while I was writing all these notes together over the podcast, this has nothing to do with the plot, but it's just like me noticing things. It's like Karth is very similar to Darth and Kareth. And I'm like, could someone just have like come up with other things, like, like different names? But it's like Darth Malak and Saul Kareth, no Karth. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, it's a lot of ARTH, but whatever. So like, the fates of Revan, Bastila, Karth, Darth Malak, and the galaxy are revealed. And I'd love to avoid Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker parallels, but it is kind of hard when it's like Star Wars, it's kind of like built on like a hero rising, going on a journey, and then like there's a final battle between a Jedi and a Sith, and then something blows up. So
aboard a super weapon.
Aboard a super weapon. A war in the stars. And
yeah, see, it's funny you say that because, I mean, you can't avoid those parallels. So for like my inspirations, I had just like the end of all the Star Wars films, just kind of mishmash. I think you have to be careful to give it a little bit of a different feel, but yeah, because otherwise it's just going to feel, exactly the same, retreaded. But I think that there are some ways to kind of get around that. So what do we have going on at the Starforge, right? It's the final confrontation. There's the big space battle outside. You have the Sith fleet. You have the Republic fleet. You have, some of the characters are inside, engaging in battle with, other, Sith warriors, machinery, all sorts of things there. One of the things that I would like to see is that the Ebon Hawk actually just goes and parks on board the Starforge.
Really?
It's not involved in the space battle because I think, as awesome as that would be to see, and I think we could probably work in a lot of good space battles for the Ebon Hawk. If you have the Ebon Hawk out there flying around with Karth, and you're like, oh, it's Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, except it's the Ebon Hawk. So
Han Solo's ruining this. Darn it.
Yeah. So I ruined it again. But so I think actually it just goes and is on the Starforge just so we get away from kind of that, same exact parallel. Maybe, as we're fleeing, we get some really good space action because, that whole Sith fleet's not going to be completely gone by the time we're, making a break for the door. And what else do we have there? Bastila's there. We need to redeem her. We need to confront Malak. Just everything is going on. The whole party is together and we need to go. There's so much going on the Starforge, just like lots of layers of things. So that'll be fun, and it would be fun to kind of put all these pieces and choreograph it. So I guess we get to the Starforge. Who do you think is going to the Starforge? Is it the same three that we just had on Lehan, or is the whole team going to be on board? Do you have any kind of ideas on how we break up this party a little bit? Or
okay, so what I visualize happening is that the Republic forces Mandos and the Ebon Hawk crew are fighting the Sith forces.
Okay.
In my mind, Karth was going to fly the Ebon Hawk. And I mean, like, maybe he doesn't have to be flying it the whole time. Maybe it kind of breaks it up so you get some space action, but, like, he comes back at the end, because I kind of want him to have a moment where he has to learn to trust. It's like I could see him like being able to take a direct hit, on the window, the place where Bastila is. But then, like, because he had met up with Dustil, he's like, maybe Bastila is on the dark side. Like, I could take her out, but maybe there's a chance that Revan can reach her and her story's not done yet. So he has to, it's kind of like him coming to terms with, like, he can take someone off the map, but, like, maybe it wouldn't be right, and, like, someone can be redeemed,
Yeah.
So that's why I would want him flying the Ebon Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would see Mission and Big Z in space with, like, some Mando Space Forces. But I kind of just want to give, like, Canderous a bit more of a role and, like, kind of incorporate the Mandalorians. So it's kind of just like the Mandalorian Wars are coming a bit full circle, and Canderous has more of an arc, And then I would see Canderous, Jolie, and Juhani, and HK and T3 on the Star Forge, or maybe like T3 could be on the Ebon Hawk or something. But that's what I see happening. One question I had for you is, should Bastila and Malak be in the same area, or is that way too similar to Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, no. So I actually have them being in separate places, just how it would be in the game. But I actually kind of flipped the script on it a little bit. So for me, let me know what you think about this idea, right? So Malak has kind of been the big bad of this whole thing, but I'm wondering if it would be possible and impactful and make sense if Revan and Malak had their confrontation first, and then Revan had his confrontation and his big battle with Bastila after Malak's kind of dispatched of. So I think, I'm kind of seeing it in my head as, Revan goes and kind of, offers redemption to Malak, but, Malak's kind of too far gone. He's too power hungry. He thinks he's, too powerful for Revan. But, they're going to have the battle, and that's obviously not the case. Revan's rediscovered himself. He's discovered how powerful he is. And, in a way, it kind of backfired on Malak, his grand plan to, cripple, Revan and Bastila and, kind of bring this, party, to their knees with this, the reveal, has kind of worked against him, right? It basically let Revan know, just exactly who he was and what he was capable with. So he kind of goes in, they have a little bit of a struggle, but he takes care of Malak, and then that leaves Bastila, and she's there. She's using her force meditation somewhere else on board. Maybe that's kind of in like a big, I don't know, like a war room kind of a thing. And she's there, and they have their confrontation, and that's where they have their big epic lightsaber duel, battling kind of for the salvation of one another on board. So that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think about that? Like, kind of flipping it around and, taking care of Malak first and then Bastila. Does that make any sense, or do you think it should play out the other way? Or
I can definitely see where you're coming from. It is kind of hard. Like, I mean, it makes sense in a video game to like have one and then another. In a movie, it is hard to like kind of have one after another, which is why I would like actually writing a script and editing it. It's like, oh crap, like what are we gonna do now? Like, like even though we're kind of sort of, like proposing the trilogy, I'm kind of like, and then epic space things happen. The end, like
the end, right?
I think like it is good to have Bastila and Malak be separate. But I think I lean more towards like Bastila first and then Malak. I'm trying to remember the reference I was going to have for Revan and Malak, but I'll just kind of see kind of explain where I'm coming from. But like, I think like Bastila and Revan, like the battle will kind of be like the heart of this whole trilogy. It's the relationship you should care about. But I think he's going to spare her, and then she's going to say, like, you have to fight Malak, but to save the Republic, I'm going to use my battle meditation, and I'll help the Republic that way. You fight Malik, you can do it. You're already Revan, you know. This might be a couple future postcards, but where Revan kind of goes off to fight Malik, like, I think Revan will try to reach Malik, but Malik's just not going to be receptive. It's going to be more of a physical lightsaber battle, but it's going to be kind of more like maybe like Odysseus coming home and like fighting the suitors in the palace. It's like, this is like Odysseus at the top of his game. Malik's just not going to have it in this fight. And then Bastila, it's kind of more of a spiritual aligning herself with the Force kind of victory. It's not like a physical lightsaber fight, but it's like, it's not passive, but it's kind of like, I think she's finally going to unlock the Avatar state. Just kidding. She's going to unlock like the truest form of battle meditation. And like, so it's kind of like the two halves of the dyad. One, it's kind of like more of a physical fight, like Revan versus Malik. And then Bastila kind of like aligning herself with the Force. And like Revan is kind of like, it's more like a one-on-one thing. And then like with Bastila, it's kind of like she's becoming part of like the Force, you know, like, and I think she's finally going to understand, kind of seeing the whole big picture, you know, like the whole Republic army, you know, and like, so it's kind of like, that's how you kind of get two halves of the same battle kind of happening at once. So that's why I kind of want it to be Bastila and then Malik, but it is so hard to kind of plot this all out and not have it seem like Return of the Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. And like, how do you have like the emotional moments pay off when it's like one after another? Like, it would be really hard. So, yeah,
it would be tricky for sure. But yeah, it'd be really great. Yeah, to see kind of how, you know, she's embracing this kind of full Force power and what it would take for Revan to kind of break through, you know, her abilities and reach her, and you know what that redemption is going to look like ultimately in the end, for sure. So, and as far as, you know, kind of everyone else on board, I think I would really like to see kind of all the characters maybe kind of on the Starforge and flee together, so we get the entire party back on the Ebon Hawk, you know, kind of one last time, as we're, you know, after we've taken care of Malik and gotten this thing destroyed and we're heading out. Did you have any kind of other thoughts about, you know, characters that we have? You kind of ran through the list of them there, but maybe just what, you know, leaving the Starforge looks like after we get these two, you know, confrontations we've been building for this whole time out of the way.
So some character focuses, like, I would just like to see Karth spare Bastila. Kind of just make the choice to let someone make the choice to become better. And then Revan and Bastila, like, that kind of has to be the whole focal point of this trilogy, I think. Like, because then you kind of see, like, two people kind of follow the dark side, but they're kind of, like, through the bond, kind of, like, able to become better. It's just a good story, you know? And then I would just say the Ebon Hawk crew gets its time to shine. Maybe everyone can have a hallway scene. I kind of don't want Revan to have a hallway scene on the Starforge just because I'm here to not give fans what they want, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, make it more about the story. But,
okay,
yeah. And then Malik gets to be awesome and die. Like, let him be, like, an ultimate villain, you know? And then, like, at the end, he kind of has some, a moment of clarity, you know, where he kind of sees, like, where it all went wrong, and he's able to kind of see the whole picture. But I think he just wasn't capable of what Revan was capable of. And And like that's what I liked in our episodes with 100% Star Wars is like just talking about Malik. Like there's some nuggets, you know, like as much as I'm like, oh, this Jaw is so stupid, you know, like
right.
There's some nuggets. There's some redemptive character beats that kind of make it cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be good to see, not necessarily his redemption, but to see his kind of regret, right? Once he realizes, you know, that it's too late, and you know the things that the path that he's been down and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah. And my film inspiration, guess what it is?
No, I don't know.
I said nothing. Let it be its own thing. You know.
Oh, there you go.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I'd kind of mentioned, you know, it's just like a mishmash of kind of all of the endings of other Star Wars films, you know, just because the parallels and the comparisons are definitely there. But yeah, let it be its own thing. I mean, it can have kind of the weighted, you know, feelings of, you know, Return of the Jedi, but yeah, let it be its own thing. Let it feel a little bit different. And like I said, it's partially about redemption for Bastila, and it's partially about regret, and it's, you know, just kind of this, you know, collapsing exhaustion for this group of people who have been across the stars to, you know, see this task completed, right? That was just kind of, you know, some were tasked with it, like, you know, Bastila and Revan and Karth, but, you know, everyone else just kind of joined up along the way on this journey that they're going on. So I think just kind of a big relief for, you know, for our team and for the galaxy at large. So
I just realized how to make the visual of the destruction of the Starforge different from all the other movies.
Okay.
Like, when the Starforge is destroyed, it doesn't blow up, but you know how, like, it kind of siphons its energy from a sun?
Mm-hmm.
As the Starforge, like, loses its power, it sinks in, it's pulled into the sun.
Oh, okay.
So it bursts into flames. Like, it's not an explosion, but it's kind of like it sinks, and then it's just kind of overpowered by the light, which could be a fun visual metaphor, you know?
Yep.
And,
that'd be cool. And it would look great with the bronze or,
with the
you know,
bronze
gold or
turning
whatever. Yeah.
maybe green and then white, you know, like it's hot, you know, so.
Yeah, as it just heats up like this precious metal. Yeah, that would be really cool. So I would be in for that. So if that's what's happening to the Starforge, what happens to everyone else? How do they?
They all die. So it means
how do they get out of there?
No, just kidding.
Oh, okay. Rogue One ending. Okay, that should have been your film inspiration then, I guess. No, okay.
I'm kidding. Everyone lives. I know I should like probably be like for it to mean something, someone has to die, but I'm like, they all live. So
yeah,
there. The only person that dies is Malik. Like, I'm kind of against, like, deaths happening just to make it seem more real. Because I'm like, it's Star Wars. It's a fairy tale. They don't die in the game. And, like, some of these characters have, like, stories that could continue if things were going to go and progress. Like, you know, like with KOTOR 2 or whatever that is. But, like, they don't need to die. Like, they kind of have moments that represent death, you know, falling to the dark side, but they don't need to die because I don't want them to, so they're not going to. So it's good. Yep. It's a good plan. But how I would end the film is like Vandar's speech, like where it talks about like Revan being like a knight of the Old Republic, you know. The whole crew gets to kind of shine, but I don't think I would end just with that. I'd have a little denouement, you know, because I can. And then I would kind of let the trio have a moment. Karth goes off with Dustil, you know, and then it kind of focuses on Revan and Bastila, like, and maybe they just, like, are on Lihan and sit by the beach and watch the sunset, you know? Like...
Okay, yeah.
Maybe they're staring at the sun, and rather than just like, wow, it's BB-8 and Rey, and they're alone, You know, like it's kind of like it's the Force dyad. You know, like they're together, and the Jedi literally can't separate them. Like they're together again, and yeah.
Yeah, I like that, and I kind of have kind of similar. So they have like some sort of like award ceremony kind of thing. At least acknowledge this team of individuals that kind of came together and saved the galaxy on this quest. But then everyone's kind of back on board the Ebon Hawk, and we get to say like our individual goodbyes as everyone's kind of disembarking, right? Mission NZ, or going back to Kashyyyk, and kind of everyone's going their own separate ways, and you're left kind of with the trio, are the last ones on board. And I think maybe you have like Karth drop off Bastila and Revan. You went with Lihan. I'm having him take them to Coruscant. And that's kind of where he drops them off, and they're there to kind of start their life together. As we see Coruscant, it's still a huge city planet, but maybe we see, I don't remember the name of the mountain from the High Republic, but maybe we see more of that kind of in the distance, right? We're still building up the layers, and, Kar says he's, off, he needs to go, repair his relationship, or, he still has time to begin a relationship with his son, so he leaves, and we kind of get the end similar to you, right? Sitting on a beach, but I have him kind of on this big cityscape of Coruscant, but yeah, doing kind of the same thing, and we end with just the original dyad, and then that kind of leaves it open ended enough where whatever comes next for Revan and Bastila is ready to go.
Yeah, like just let Star Wars have a happy ending for once. Like, it doesn't mean that there can't be a continuation of the story, but I'm like, for as many Star Wars movies as there are, I'm like, there's not really a lot of permanent happy endings, and it's not like I'm saying like everything needs to happen exactly the way people want it to all the time with no bad things ever happening. I'm like, no, like, I'm just saying, like, if Star Wars is a fairy tale, it doesn't mean it has to be like a happy Disneyland parade all the time, but it's like kind of like you have to give people bits of hope, rather than just saying like everything you love will die and you just have to deal with it because that's what life is. Like, like it's a fairy tale. Like, you can teach people what the world is going to be like, but like the life is hard. Like, you have to give people hope too.
Exactly. So, so that's how we would end it. Cassia, do you have any closing thoughts on how you think our Act 3 kind of overview of the film is going to look? Anything else that needs mentioning, or any other things that, we really want to make sure we see in this thing?
I feel like I kind of stated everything that I kind of wished for, but it's funny, like, kind of just talking through, like, all of these acts, like this trilogy, like a lot. I started with a plan, and like for the most part the plan stayed the same, but like I was kind of able to kind of like see this non-existent film, and like kind of come up with like different moments. Like, it's just kind of fun, like to kind of talk through these things. Like, yeah,
definitely. It's same as you, right? You have kind of an idea of what you think it's going to look like, but as, we've had conversations, and we've had some really good guests on to have conversations about different, parts of, these films and these characters, and, some fan casts and stuff. And it just kind of makes you think about how things would look and play out on film a little bit differently. And, you can change your mind about some things, and that's good. And yeah, I just think it was a lot of fun going through this with you. So, I think that's going to wrap it up here for, Act 3 in terms of the film. Now, we're going to be back because we want to talk a little bit more about the character arcs in this third film, and kind of, of the trilogy as a whole a little bit. But, let us know what you think about the titles, if you have anything you would like to see in an Act 3 of an adaptation. And we'll see everyone next time. May the Force be with you.